It's time for another episode of The Oil Stream with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola, presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a Wednesday night episode of The Oil Stream. Nielsen and Tommy Gazzola with you. Of course, you can message us anytime if you're watching on the live stream and you want to watch on YouTube. It's over on the Nielsen Media YouTube channel as well. And of course, you got to subscribe to the podcast on all of your podcasting platforms. Basically, wherever you get podcasts, we got them for you. It's all set up there. It's all brought to you by our friends at Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Nothing says chilling on a Wednesday night watching the Oil Stream like a delicious Popeye's chicken sandwich or some juicy nugs or any of their great sides or sauces or even a nice cold beverage. Tommy, how are you, buddy?
Dusty, I'm technically on vacation, but you know we don't take a break from this pod, buddy. We love this thing, and we keep rolling, and we've got great sponsors. And we have a ton of fun with this, so there's no way I'm skipping out on any episodes.
Let's be honest. We are content whores, and that's what we're here for, man. And there's always content. We're gonna get to your Boston Pizza Appetizer coming up in a second. We're gonna talk about Pat Kane. We'll get into that a little bit. I was gonna do a little bit on Foegele haters, but we might save that for another episode because we did a bunch of questions that came in a little bit earlier on today, and we'll get to some of those. But Tommy, what are you wearing, and where are you at, my man?
So I spent 8 years working for Oilers TV, and I've made some very good friendships with some people I hold in very high regard, and one of them happens to be Ty Gretzky. And Ty was always telling me over the years, hey, come down to Gaza Ranch in Coeur d'Alene and visit and help out at Gretzky Hockey School. And I could never do it. I could never pull it off, and I would help out in Edmonton and Calgary. And then finally I was like, you know what? I need to get the hell out of town.
Yes.
And he's like, come down to Coeur d'Alene and do this camp and help out. And, you know, I'm helping out. We do a thing called Coach's Corner, and it's basically sports psychology. And these kids, like, they're 7 to 15. 7 to 15. But you teach them the fundamentals of the mindset of how to be a good athlete. But at the same time, you kind of want to set the tone for them in terms of just being a good person. And a lot of them already are. Like, their parents are great. And so, like, I go on the ice, I push pucks, all that stuff. I help shooting on goalies, which is great. But we have a great coach here, Tyler Miller, who played in the SJ and the MJ for a bit and then played at Grand Canyon University. And he's a sports psychologist major, and he's looking to do that. He worked with the Coyotes for a bit. So basically, he works on the psychology side with these kids, does a great job helping them out and really making them understand at their level and speaking to them a way that they can comprehend what's being told. And then honestly, Dusty, like, I just tell them stories about what NHL guys have done or things I've seen that tie into the lesson plan of that day. And it's essentially me just telling them stories like this, and they love it. They eat it up. They ask a million questions, very curious minds. And it really is fun. And you get to know some of them, and some of the kids that are down here actually are pretty well connected to the NHL. So for them, like, even some of them, their dads might be coaches in the league, and even they're listening, and they're just like, oh, I know that player. I've heard of him. And it's really cool. It's a neat experience, and I'm enjoying all of it, really. And on top of that, you get to wear, like, gear like this.
That's sweet. I love it. Tommy Gazzola fantasy camp, essentially, is what it is. I mean, you got to tell the Mark Wahlberg pissing story. We got to get that out there.
So I got to be quiet because I'm in the clubhouse right now. And imagine, like, Royal Mayfair in Edmonton on steroids. I just walked in. I got a ride from Jack Elway, John Elway's son. We went and crushed a couple of beers. And he's waiting for Ty Gretzky to go golfing. And he's like, you coming, Tom? And I'm like, I wish. I have to go do my show. And he's like, shit, man. Like, that sucks. And I was like, priorities, dude. I'll see you guys in a bit.
Have you not heard of the Oil Stream, Mr. Elway's son?
I told him about it, and he's like, that's cool. I get it. He's got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
But, so I'm in the clubhouse, and I just walk in, and I'm like, listen, I got to take a meeting. I didn't tell them it's a podcast. I'm like, I got to take a meeting. And they're like, okay, we'll set you up in the ballroom. I'm in this, like, grand ballroom. I have, like, 15 seats around me. Here's, you know, the glasses. Here's
fancy.
And I was like, can I close the door? They're like, no, the door doesn't close, but we'll make sure nobody comes in here. So So I'm like, well, I told you about Mark Wahlberg the other day because he's got a place like right down the street from Wayne Gretzky's. And I actually went to the bathroom at the clubhouse. I ran into Doug Waite, had a conversation with him because him and I had a few drinks at Ty Gretzky's wedding. And I go to the bathroom, and Marky Mark walks in, and I was like, oh, that's a kid. And then I was like, oh, no, that's not a kid. He's like, hey, what's up? And I was like, Mark Wahlberg.
That's a great Mark Wahlberg impression. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up?
He's like, hey, what's up? Super nice. And I'm like, okay. And then I walk out to the dock, wait for the boat to be ready because we went out on the water. And Mark Wahlberg walks by, and he's like, hey, what's up, guys? What's up, Ty? And I'm just like, oh, my God, this guy's tiny. And he could beat the crap out of me like that because he's jacked, but he's not that big. So I got to be careful. If he walks by, he might come in here and just clock me on this thing.
I want to see you get a round of golfing with Mark Wahlberg before you come home, buddy. That's your goal now moving forward. Make it happen.
I would just be in awe of him. I would just be like, so remember in Entourage when this happened? Was that from your life? Can you tell me more? Elaborate.
I've only watched like 4 episodes of Entourage. Like? What's that?
Yeah. What's Donnie Wahlberg like? What's Donnie Wahlberg like?
Oh, my goodness. All right, let's get into it. It is your Boston Pizza Appetizer here on the Oil Stream. The patio is open at Boston Pizza. I actually took my family. It was a long day at camp for Marshall and Elizabeth today. Then they had swimming lessons right after. So we hit BP's for dinner on the way home today over here in the Hamptons. They've got a brand new chicken sandwich. At least on the menu it says new. It's the Honey Dill chicken sandwich, which is pretty damn good because I recently became a fan of Honey Dill out in Manitoba. They got honey dill all over the place. So I tried this new sandwich and it was absolutely delicious. Also on Wednesdays at Boston Pizza, obviously you get the half price wings. I think $1 off tankers on Wednesdays as well. And of course, happy hour daily from 2 to 5 and then again from 9 to close at all of your Boston Pizza locations. Once again, the patio is open. Tommy, BP's Appetizer to get us going in this episode. We've not had an episode since Matthias Janmark signed to kind of round out the Oilers' bottom 6. What are you thinking his role kind of ends up being on this team?
A little bit of everything, right? Like he has a bit of grit to him, a bit of tenacity, can score, can make plays. The biggest thing for a guy like Matthias Janmark, Dusty, will be smart play in his own zone. Make sure he's reliable, getting pucks out. And then on top of that, tilting the ice, getting it into the offensive zone, trying to grind down the opposition defense, and just being smart out there. Like, this is a guy that can kind of ply his trade in different ways. He can adapt however he's needed. And that's the kind of versatility you need, especially in your bottom 6. And then there could be times where maybe he gets bumped up for a period or two and they need a spark. If he's a guy that's going, he gets a look up there. If he's a guy that's not going, well, then he just takes his regular shift and nobody's, throwing up a fuss about what he's doing out there. So I think that's a good signing. And it goes back to the old adage where you just need good NHL players. And I know he didn't have a great season in Vegas. He was okay. But Dusty, he's a good NHL player, and I think he was more appealing going into last season. A lot of Oiler fans probably, I think his name got tossed around a little bit, but this is a good pro. This is a good pro.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a guy that you'll have to really worry about in your bottom 6. I don't think he's a guy that comes in and out of the lineup in your bottom 6. He's a guy that can play a little bit on power play too if you need him to. Not excellent. Penalty kill if you need him to, but not one of the first guys you're going to throw over the boards. If you need him to, somebody, if you have a center that gets hurt partway through a game, he can slide over there if you need him to as well. So he's just, I think Gager described him on 2 guys on the goalie as like not a Leatherman utility knife, but like a Swiss Army knife. A pretty good, reliable tool for Jay Woodcroft in the bottom 6. So overall, $1.25 million. There's a lot of guys who are still free agents. I think if you're Matthias Janmark, you're pretty happy that you already got a deal with all of the other players who've gone unsigned so far. So I think because of that, Tommy, considering how many guys are still out there, this is obviously a guy that there's liked, I'm not going to say a lot, but quite a bit to go out and snag him now with, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of free agents still kicking around out there. And every day those guys remain free agents, their numbers go down. If you're Janmark, boom, you got it locked in right now.
Yeah, exactly. And Dusty, like, I would imagine there's some Oiler fans that are thinking to themselves, well, he doesn't bring a lot of offensive punch. That's not what he's there for. There is some there. It's just a matter of
This
being
team doesn't need
responsible.
offensive punch.
Exactly. There's heavy lifters that will take care of that. As long as he's taking care of business in his own zone, through the neutral zone, into the O zone, that's what you need. And if he chips in with a few goals, if he gets you 10 to 15 goals, 30 points, that's a good bottom six guy that doesn't hurt you.
All right, that's going to do it for your Boston Pizza appetizer. To really kind of dive into today's episode, the patio is open at Boston Pizza, all of their locations, and you will see us in early August at one of the Boston Pizza locations for lunch. So you can swing on by, watch a little oil stream, and dive into some of the delicious appetizers. May I suggest the Thai bites? They are absolutely terrific.
Cactus cut over here.
Yeah, we got a nice little battle going on here between the Thai bites and the cactus cut chips. They are delicious as well. Once again, huge thanks to Boston Pizza for officially hopping on board last week. Very much appreciated. All right, Tommy. So, I mean, anytime with the exception of probably Matthew Tkachuk, even though today on my show, I still got text messages being like, Dusty, do you think there's any way Matthew Tkachuk and the Oilers could work? I was like, guess what? That's never going to happen. But anybody that pops up, you know, even before DeBrincat was traded, people were like, "Whoa, could you get DeBrincat?" So now Pat Kane's name hops out there, and I'm sure a lot of teams and their fan bases are going to go through the entire Pat Kane discussion. I think it was Bet Online, and obviously I've got a relationship with CoolBet, but I get a bunch of emails from everywhere else, and I think it was Bet Online today that has the Oilers listed as a 3-1 favorite to be the team that trades for Patrick Kane if Patrick Kane does get traded. Tommy, we threw out asked for some bunch of questions today on the Oil Stream, and we had a bunch of people say, do you guys think that the Oilers could legitimately be in on Patrick Kane? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, with the Oilers being the odds-on favorite to land Patrick Kane in a trade, what would that trade even look like, and do you guys think it's even possible? So, Tommy, what are you thinking, and more importantly, what are you hearing when it comes to Pat Kane?
What I'm thinking is if you want to burn some money or flush it down the toilet, make that bet. But what I'm being told, Dusty, is that basically there's no interest in Patrick Kane from an Oilers standpoint. And it's something that came up in recent meetings among hockey ops. And it was shut down by everybody at the top, starting with Ken Holland. So that's just a rumor. That's stirring it up. That's clickbait, and don't expect it. Doesn't sound like it's going to happen. And I was getting, bombarded with texts from people asking me about it. And I was like, you know what? I went on vacation. I don't know what the hell's going on. I had to check in about that. And it was shut down in meetings. It did come up, and basically no legs from Ken's standpoint is what I'm told.
So there we go. Pat Kane, Oilers, not happening, even if everybody wants to get super duper creative with the cap situation, because that alone is near impossible to make it happen anyway. I'll be very interested to see what ends up happening with Pat Kane. If you're the Chicago Blackhawks, can you get more for him right now, or could you just wait and have a bunch of Stanley Cup contenders come call in at the deadline and be willing to overpay for a player that is very rarely, like, these types of guys don't pop up at trade deadlines very often because they're usually on contenders. So if you were going to bed at night thinking that Pat Kane was possibly going to become an Edmonton Oiler, as Tommy just said, from the top, it's not happening. So I guess we just killed like 4 episodes of the Oil Stream because we really could have drug that out for at least 2 months thinking about Pat Kane. But look, bottom line is you want to pass along information that's correct, right?
Yeah. And I'm not here to stir it up or do clickbait. That's not our thing. Like, when I get information, if it's good, I'll pass it along. I'm not here to be an insider. I'm just here to provide info and dig, because I'm a reporter and a broadcaster that covers this team. I know with the Puljujärvi stuff and what we've been breaking over the last few weeks, people kind of bring it into question. Information is information. Facts are facts. You don't have to like them. You can speculate on them. But I'm getting this from hockey ops, so I'm passing it along to you because I know people are talking about it. It's juicy. It's hot. But here's what I'm being told. And by the way, for those that don't know, I do not work for the team and haven't for 4 years.
Snack 10 on the live chat tonight says, I was happier 2 minutes ago, which is understandable.
Sorry,
but
Snack
let's be
10.
honest. Did you actually think that was going to happen? Now, Frank Saravalli was on with Stoff today. Didn't listen to it myself, but people were throwing it out there that the Oilers, I think Frank said the Oilers are still working on something. They've got something up their sleeve still here. The lineup and the roster you see right now is still not the one that you're going to see on opening night. And Tommy, we kind of been talking about this for a little while with the Jesse Puljujarvi thing. Like the right side is going to have to be reworked if Jesse Puljujarvi is on the way out. And I know, some people are saying, well, you can move Puljujarvi. You don't have to deal with that cap. You can get somebody else on the right side. Bottom line is right now, they have enough money for Yamamoto and McLeod and like $1 million somewhere else. So you're not replacing Jesse Puljujarvi's $3 million with another right winger unless there's another trade coming. So what would you think is still to come? Is it just as simple as Jesse Puljujarvi gets traded, possibly at this point for a pick, even though originally they didn't want to do that, and that's it? And that's why this team looks different? Or do you think there's something else of significance that could possibly happen?
If they swing that Puljujarvi for a pick idea, I would imagine they would use whatever they could to try to find another player, maybe another defenseman. Maybe we'll start seeing PTOs handed out, Dusty.
Yeah.
But it's getting to the point now where it's like, do they have a trade for Foegele? That's something I should follow up on. But Frank's not going to throw something out there unless he's got some good information as well. So we'll see what happens. But like they still haven't gotten that defenseman. Pardon me, there's a fly here. I think, we're getting close to the time where it's like this team's almost set going into training camp, but a couple of moves here or there. And that Puljujarvi thing is going to linger. It really will. I think you and I are going to be talking about it.
Do you think this lingers into September?
At least a bunch of episodes. It could. I mean,
like there's no, I guess with arbitration coming up, there would be a deadline.
Of course. But,
the
thing is, the amount of options they have to move him to is limited.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see, because there's other teams kind of testing the market right now, seeing what they could get on value deals. This might drag into the summer. This might drag into August, maybe heading into camp. If it gets quiet, goes into a lull, because, the hockey world's finally starting to go into that rest period. It's something that might not pop back up until we're getting set for guys to come back over from Europe for training camp, which is usually the first week of September. Some of them roll in late August, depending on how they're feeling. That's when we could potentially see things pick up too.
All right, let's get to a couple of questions. You did throw it out earlier today that we get to a couple of questions. If you're watching the live stream, make sure you subscribe to the Nielsen Media YouTube channel. I'll probably tweet out a link to that a little bit later on. And if you're not yet subscribed to the Oil Stream podcast, you're missing out, so make sure you do that. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll do a whole episode on the rest of the division at some point here in the next couple of weeks, because there certainly has been some changes. But Michael asks today, with the Pacific Division teams taking a step back, do the Oilers have a cruise to the playoffs? Seems like that, doesn't it, Tommy? Don't you think?
Yeah, it does. And they have a good team, especially bringing back a lot of guys that were on the team last year. And that's another thing, too, about this, is people are saying, well, the Oilers are just as good as they were last year. They haven't improved. We're talking about a team that went to the conference final. That's a good place to start a season.
Well, they've also, if you remember last year, they shit the bed in the middle part of the season. And then when they got Evander Kane, they were a really good hockey team. Now you're going to have Evander Kane for the entire season, what we would assume is an upgrade in goal. So I think based on that alone, Tommy, I think it's fair to say that they're a better hockey team.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, too, you look at the Avs really quickly, because I know people like to compare it after what happened in that sweep. The Avs added Arturi Lehkonen, they added Josh Manson and Andrew Cogliano, and that turned a really good team into a great team, into a Stanley Cup champion. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And in the Pacific Division, yes, they should be the favorite given what they have on paper, given what they did last season. Absolutely. But guess who was the favorite going into last year in the Pacific? The Vegas Golden Knights, with a fantastic roster, great, what we assumed would be excellent goaltending. Didn't turn out to be the case. Robin Leonard was hurt. Jack Eichel was out. And they had a horrific season. I know COVID played a factor as well, but Dusty, yes, Edmonton is probably the favorite going into the season, but they need to work for it. And a team like an LA might be feisty and push their way through. I don't know what's going to happen to Calgary. Calgary is absolutely a soap opera right now, and we'll see what happens with Matthew Tkachuk. But yes, it's fair to peg the Oilers as the odds-on favorite. Are they going to cruise? No, I don't think so. Everybody knows how much of a grind this season is. And like you mentioned, that dip that they took in December and January was painful.
Yeah. Didn't have Woodcroft then either, though. I mean, I mentioned Kane earlier, upgrading goaltending, Woodcroft for the entire year. I mean, I'll be the full-fledged homer. Not that I don't think we've ever been accused of that on this episode or on this podcast, but I do think they cruise to the playoffs. A division title, I don't think anybody in the league cruises to a division title. But playoff spot with the way the division shapes up, they should get one. Let's wrap up with this question. This is I like these types of fun questions that we might not come up with on our own. 3 years from now, which current prospect will have the biggest impact on this team? That's a fun question. I think it came in. Who gave that? Ross sent that question. Thanks for the question, Ross.
Yeah, thank you, Ross. I really like the idea of Reed Schaefer and what kind of player he's evolving into. Like, I know he's the last pick of the first round recently. Nothing against Xavier Bourgault, nothing against Raphael Lavoie. It just seems to me like Schaefer could be that, and I keep bringing up this name, Tanner Jeannot. If he could be that feisty, tough guy who can score different ways, invaluable. And it might take some time, so it might take 3 years, but I look at him and I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of player that they've kind of been missing, and they kind of have that now in Evander Kane, and he could evolve into that as well. So I'm watching him and thinking, this is an element that the Oilers kind of don't have, kind of an asshole on the ice who can score, a young one, not named Evander Kane, and I think that could be a valuable asset going forward in a few years. That's my pick.
It's a good answer. I'm going to go with the guy we've seen a little bit of already, but based on his draft pedigree and what I think he's capable of once he really settles in, I'm going to say Broberg. I'm going to say Broberg ends up being like a legitimate, steady, really important top four defenseman within 3 years for sure. And then we'll see how everything sorts itself out with, top line ice time and stuff. But this is a guy who skates extremely well. He comes with a lot of size, not that he's going to be overly physical. From what I've seen of him so far, even as a young guy, his decision-making looks really good. I don't know what the offensive upside is going to be on him, but the fact that he can play both sides alone, even as a young guy, I think is kind of valuable for the group moving forward as well, right? Good point. Like, you got Nurse and Bouchard locked in here for quite some, Bouchard will eventually be locked in for quite some time. Nurse as well. But then, I mean, if you have your top three defensemen 3 years from now, and Broberg's in the mix with those two guys and can flip back and forth, it allows you to have a little bit of flexibility on the blue line. So I'm going to go with Broberg. I think sometimes we forget how much he's hyped coming out of his draft, and I think he's developed kind of on the path that many people expected him to develop. So I still like Broberg a lot. But I love that question. That's a really fun question. That's good.
Great question.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for another episode of the Oil Stream. Tommy, we'll let you get back to Idaho, my man. Thank you very much for joining us from the ballroom tonight.
Dusty, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell button for notifications every time we're on YouTube. And where the hell can I get that CFL hat?
I ordered it on the Ottawa Red Blacks website in their retro line. Yeah, it's nice, eh?
Nice.
Yeah,
beautiful.
I like it too.
I would trade you. I've got some Gretzky hockey gear I can trade some people for. So if anyone wants to do that, I can make it happen.
All right, but I'm not moving this, just so you know. Tommy, we'll talk to you in a couple of days. All right, buddy? Have a good night, man.
Cheers, Dusty.